Now, see, if this was the future, we'd have a little jetpack and we'd just
No, we just
appear here.
we just disintegrate and reintegrate. Transportation.
Okay, before we take your calls, here are a couple of our original house names that we asked you to send us. The first one is Wits End, which was sent in by Jane Smith, which I thought meant she lived there and she was constantly at her wits' end. But apparently it's after the production company that made Porridge with Ronnie Barker.
Is that right? There you go. Also, this one sent in by Jane Wood. Hickory House, it's called. They called their house Hickory House because they used to have a hickory tree in the garden, but it died. And they're stuck with the name. That's quite a sad story. If you have any more cheerful, inventive house names, then send them in to us via the website, bbc.co.uk/homes. We have our experts assembled. And now it's time to hear from you. We've got Paul and Nicholas. And I believe we've got a call. It's Diane, and is it from Oxford? Is that right, Diane? Knutsford, I'm so sorry. Hello, Diane.
Hello there.
What's your question and who is it for?
Well, good morning to you all, sir.
Good morning to you.
We own a detached house which, according to Land Registry, is leasehold. We want to buy the lease, but we cannot trace whoever owns it at present. It's been sold on, and we can't trace the company that owns it.
So this is a house that's leasehold. That's what we were talking about. There are a few of these out there, aren't there, Nicholas?
Correct, there are.
Okay, so you've got the house, it's leasehold. You don't know who the lease owner is,
the freeholder
is. What do you do?
Well, first of all, you have a right to know who your freeholder is. So you should do a search at the Land Registry. If you find any details to do with any other leaseholders, any other freeholders, you mentioned a company. You can maybe do a search at Company's House. But if all else fails, then you can go to the county court after making a reasonable search, and they'll make a determination that the freeholder can't be found, and then with reference to the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal, determine a price and be able to help you purchase the freehold.
So, Diane, how far along that process are you? Did you say you'd been to Land Registry?
Land Registry and Company's House, yes.
Right, so you've been to Land Registry and Company's House. So the next step for Diane then is the court? Is
the county court. I'd recommend going and seeing a solicitor who's familiar with leasehold matters to help you through that process.
How long is that likely to take, do you think, Nick?
It could take a few months.
I was going to say, Diane, do you live near a church?
Yes.
Right, because sometimes leasehold properties are built on land that was once upon a time owned by the church. So maybe if you're a good Catholic like I am and you go to Mass every Sunday, speak to the priest and maybe get some information from him.
Oh, that's a thought, yes,
Yeah.
I'll try that.
There's a special search you can do for church land.
Right.
But I mean, at this stage, Diane could quite happily go to the courts and then she'd be the freeholder quite easily.
Reasonably easily, yes.
Okay.
It's sort of in her interest not to find the freeholder, really, isn't it?
Well, if I think actually it would benefit her because then she could purchase the freehold and then she'd have self-determination over her property.
You have to make a reasonable effort, obviously,
Yes.
before you can go to the court. Right, we're going to take another call. It's Mrs. Harris from Essex. Good morning.
Good morning.
And what is your question?
What it is, my son's just about to buy his first property. It's a leaseholding flat. It's got 66 years left on the lease. The vendor won't renew it. My son cannot afford to renew it at the time. And this has been reflected in the price, apparently. Now, how will he stand if he buys it down the line in, say, 5 years' time, if he wants to sell it? And is it really a bad buy? What do you think?
Well, when he comes to sell it, then he may want to extend the lease at that time if financial circumstances permit. But he may be restricted in terms of the market because the shorter the lease, the less likely a lender will give you a mortgage. So he may be restricted in terms of his pool of purchasers to cash purchasers.
And is it fair to say that every year that goes by, the cost of extending the lease will actually go up, unfortunately, Mrs. Harris? That's the case, isn't it?
The cost of extending a lease will vary with time, and of course, as a lease is a diminishing asset, every year the lease will become less and less valuable.
Okay.
Paul, I mean, when you look at properties, would you count out leasehold properties in terms of something as an investment? Or?
The thing is, I bought a lot of flats in my time, and the thing I begrudge most isn't actually the lease per se. We were discussing this earlier. It's the fact that I begrudge paying a service charge for some bloke, to come around to cut my grass and charge me 120 quid for the privilege. So that's what I begrudge, really. But with leasehold properties, you can, the caller in this instance, I don't think is in this position, but, you know, very salubrious parts of London, especially Belgravia and Chelsea, if you find leasehold properties that have, let's say, 20 years left to run, they can be had for a song, really, and at least you've got the kudos of being able to say that you live, you know, in a really fashionable part of London at, you know, a fifth of the price of what it should be.
I mean, we talked a little bit about ground rent early on. We kind of brushed over that. Is that always a straight kind of peppercorn rent? I remember with my leasehold flat, it was about £60 a year. It was negligible.
Yes, sometimes there's a review clause, and they're currently being reviewed up to, the maximum I've heard is £250 a year.
But it is there is a sort of a standard
minimal
cap
cost
on it, if you like.
It's not a cap because it can be reviewed, but it's meant to be a minimal cost. So.
Can you just explain what the difference is between ground rent and service charge?
Sure. The service charge is the cost shared amongst all the flat owners for the upkeep of the common parts, such as the stairways, the lift, the car park, gardens, and so on. The ground rent is paid to the building owner because the building sits on his land, and for the right to have your flat on his land, you pay a small rent.
But you see, service charge as well, it has to be noted that service charge usually includes buildings insurance, but also the owner of the building will put his commission on top. So he'll get the insurance done, he will cut the grass, he will service the communal areas, put his 15 or 20% on top, and then bill you. So he's made from selling the property and he's making a gain.
I mean, it sounds to me like with service charge, it's one of those areas where they could have you over a barrel, really. It's really up to them what they charge.
Yeah, but you could go to a tribunal then, couldn't you? If it's excessive, you could say, I'm not paying it. Get the rest of the people in the block to sing with you on the same song, if you like, and then they wouldn't be able to charge it.
And in addition, the lease specifies what you can be charged for. So if you have any questions about whether the charge is reasonable or whether you have to pay it, then you can go to the Leasehold Valuation Tribunal.
There's also a bit of a market now, isn't there, for people buying freeholds. Not buying a property, but actually going to an auction and buying a freehold. Is that something that's becoming more and more common, do you think?
Well, what is becoming common is for groups of flat owners gathering together to purchase their freehold, and then they step into the shoes of the building owner, and then you have kind of a unity between the people who live in the property and the people who actually own the building.
And
So
that's
it's a share of freehold rather than leasehold, yeah.
Right. Well, technically, actually, they still own leases, but each of them has a share in a company which owns the freehold, which is the only asset of that company.
Okay. God, it's a difficult issue, isn't it? Though,
Because you've been through it yourself, haven't you?
I have been through it, and we sold our flat, but we were also the freeholder of the building, and it was a really complicated sort of process to go through.
Did anybody have a harpoon gun in your building?
Not that I know of.
I needed to ask that.
We're going to leave it there. It's a complicated subject. Hopefully we've cleared it up a little bit. On tomorrow's show, if you've got a neglected rooftop that's just sitting there, we'll show you how to start a revolution in the sky when we look at rooftop gardens.
And follow our quick and easy guide to getting a lodger in for spare cash from your spare room. Get in touch by phone or text, or start a discussion on our message board and chat to your fellow enthusiasts. For all the contact details, visit our website bbc.co.uk/homes.
And we'll be returning to Nottinghamshire for more chaos, panic and pizza with Vito Catafo. We'll see you at 10
See you
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Stay with us on BBC One. The search is on for a Victorian semi, in to buy or not to buy, and later, Cash in the Attic.